The alien heir believed power was inherited by blood. He never imagined it could be taken away by a human. Or a dog. The wind screamed across the obsidian cliffs of Vela Prime, carrying dust the color of burning copper. Below the cliff edge, the planet dropped into a bottomless ravine known as the Mother's Divide, a sacred place where no one survived a fall. High above it, Kyra's Veln, heir to the Veln Dominion, tightened his grip on the antigrave wheelchair. Inside the chair sat his mother, Matron Selvara Veln, ruler of trade fleets, keeper of ancient treaties, and the last obstacle standing between Kyra's and absolute control. Her silver-lined eyes watched the horizon calmly, but her hands trembled slightly on the armrests. "Kyra's," she said softly, "you walk too fast." "That's because you walk too slow," he replied, voice cold, polished, rehearsed. He stopped at the edge. The cliff waited. Selvara sensed it instantly. The air felt wrong. The silence stretched too long. "Kyra's," she said again, sharper now. "Step back." Instead, he leaned forward. "For decades, you clung to the past," Kyra said. "You trusted aliens. Humans. Outsiders." Her heart sank. "You would kill your own mother for power?" she asked. Kyra's smiled. "For survival." He shoved. The wheelchair tilted forward, its stabilizers failing as gravity screamed to claim it. Selvara screamed. At that exact moment, a deep bark cut through the wind. Not alien. Human. Jonah Reed had been hiking the high ridges for mapping data, sweat soaking through his Enviro jacket as Vela Prime's heavy gravity crushed down on him. 6 months on the planet, and his legs still burned with every step. Beside him, Rook, a broad-shouldered black shepherd mix, froze mid-step. Rook's ears snapped forward. His growl was low. "Dangerous." "What is it, buddy?" Jonah asked. Then he saw it. A wheelchair tipping toward the cliff. A woman screaming. And an alien pushing. "Oh hell no," Jonah whispered. "Rook, Geo." The dog launched forward like a missile, claws digging into stone, muscles screaming but never slowing. Jonah ran after him, lungs burning, heart pounding. Rook reached the alien first. Without hesitation, he leapt. His jaws locked onto Kyra's leg. The alien heir shrieked in shock as pain exploded through his body. He stumbled backward, losing balance, losing control. The wheelchair teetered. Jonah dove. His hands slammed onto the frame as it slid inches from the edge. Gravity pulled. Metal screamed. Jonah screamed back. With one brutal pull, he dragged the chair away from death. Selvara collapsed into sobs. Kyra's fell hard onto the stone. Rook still clamped onto him like iron. "Rook! Hold!" Jonah shouted. The dog growled but obeyed, teeth still sunk deep. Jonah stood between the alien heir and the woman, fists shaking. "What kind of monster does this?" Jonah demanded. Kyra spat copper-colored blood and laughed. "You don't understand our hierarchy, human." "I understand murder," Jonah said coldly. He activated his emergency beacon. "This is Jonah Reed. Attempted homicide at Mother's Divide. Immediate response required." Within minutes, sleek enforcement skimmers descended from the sky, their engines humming with authority. Armed alien enforcers surrounded the scene. Selvara spoke first. "My son tried to kill me." Kyra's snarled. "She lies. She is weak." "She is alive," Jonah said. "Because of a human dog." The enforcers moved fast. Energy restraints snapped shut around Kyra's wrists. As he was dragged away, his eyes locked onto Jonah with pure hatred. "This isn't over," Kyra's hissed. "You've just declared war without knowing it." Later that evening, Jonah sat outside his small research shelter, Rook resting his head on Jonah's knee. The sky burned violet and gold. A convoy arrived silently. At its center hovered a regal transport bearing the sigil of the Veln Dominion. Selvara emerged, supported by attendants. She approached Jonah slowly. "You saved my life," she said. "On this world, that creates a bond stronger than blood." Jonah swallowed. I just did what anyone should. No, Salvara replied. You did what humans do. She knelt, an act no noble ever performed for an Offworlder. My son has powerful allies, she continued. They fear humanity's influence. And now, they fear you. Jonah felt a chill. Then why come here? Salvara looked at Rook. Because the future of my world may depend on a species that refuses to look away. Far above them, unseen satellites shifted position. And somewhere in the shadows, Kyra's Veln smiled. The hunt had begun. The next morning, Vila Prime woke under a sky the color of bruised steel. Wind dragged sharp dust across the capital ridgelines, and the city's towers blinked with cold light. For most citizens, it was just another day. For Jonah Reed, it felt like the universe had quietly aimed a weapon at his head. He stood outside his research shelter, watching 2 Veln security drones hover in place like silent insects. They hadn't moved since dawn. Their cameras tracked him, and their internal lights pulsed with a steady warning. Rook paced in a tight circle, hackles raised. Jonah tried to sound calm. Easy, buddy. They're supposed to protect us. But Jonah didn't believe his own words. A soft hum approached. A sleek transport descended and landed on the rocky pad beside the shelter. Its doors opened with a whisper. Matron Salvara Veln stepped out, dressed in a deep charcoal robe lined with silver thread. Her face looked older than yesterday, as if the cliff had stolen years from her. Behind her stood 4 guards in polished armor, neural stunners ready. Salvara's eyes met Jonah's. You must leave this place, she said. Jonah blinked. Leave? I thought your guards were here to keep me safe. They are, Salvara replied. But safety is temporary. Kyra's has supporters inside my own dominion. They will not stop. They will not forgive. Jonah felt his stomach tighten. Your son is in custody. Salvara's voice lowered. He was. He is not now. Jonah froze. What? Salvara lifted a hand, and a hologram appeared above her palm, grainy security footage. It showed a prisoner transport moving through a canyon road at night. Then, a sudden flash. A shockwave. The transport flipped, burning. Masked figures moved like trained soldiers. They disabled the escorts in seconds. One of them reached into the wreckage and pulled Kyra's free. The hologram ended. Jonah stared. That was a rescue operation. Salvara nodded once. Yes. And it was done with military-grade precision. Jonah felt anger rise. So your police can't hold one criminal? Salvara's eyes sharpened. Not when half of them secretly serve the same cause. The purists, Jonah guessed. Salvara's lips tightened. They call themselves the Pure Line. They believe Vila Prime must belong only to Vila blood. They see humans as infection. Ideas as disease. Jonah looked down at Rook. The dog's eyes were focused, alert, intelligent, like he understood every word. Salvara stepped closer. You embarrassed them. You interrupted their ritual. You proved that a human can change the fate of a Vila noble. Jonah scoffed. I just stopped a murder. That is exactly what they fear, Salvara said. Humans do not accept what is normal if it is cruel. Jonah's voice dropped. So what now? Salvara glanced at the guards. Now, you come with me. To my fortress. Where you will be protected until we find Kyra's. Jonah hesitated. He didn't like being dragged into alien politics, especially politics that involved assassins and inheritance wars. He was a scientist, not a soldier. But then he remembered Salvara's scream at the cliff edge. He remembered how close she came to dying. He remembered the calm, satisfied expression on Kyra's face. Jonah clenched his jaw. All right. We'll go. Rook barked once as if agreeing. Salvara's transport moved fast, cutting through the air above the city like a blade. Jonah sat beside a reinforced window, watching Vila Prime's capital unfold beneath them, beauty mixed with danger. Tall towers rose like crystal spears. Bridges curved between them. Skyways glowed with streams of traffic. From above, it looked like a peaceful civilization. But Jonah had learned something important. Clean buildings didn't mean clean hearts. A chime sounded, and Selvara sat across from him. "There is something else you must know." Jonah braced himself. "Of course there is." Selvara didn't react. Kairos is not only greedy. He is desperate. "Because of debt," Jonah said. Selvara nodded. "Yes. He owes more than money. He owes obedience." Jonah frowned. "To who?" Selvara hesitated, a rare crack in her control. Then she said, "To a faction beyond Vila Prime. Smugglers. War profiteers. Those who sell weapons and chaos to the highest bidder." Jonah felt the air shift. "Off-world." Selvara's eyes stayed locked on his. "Yes." The transport's lights flickered for a fraction of a second. Rook's head snapped up. A low warning growl rolled from his chest. Jonah's instincts screamed. Selvara's guards moved instantly, raising their stunners toward the ceiling. Jonah stood. "What was that?" Selvara whispered, "We are being tracked." They arrived at Selvara's fortress estate, an enormous structure carved into the side of a mountain, with layered gates and hovering shield generators. It looked less like a home and more like a war bunker. Inside, the air was cool and smelled like mineral stone and cold metal. Selvara walked with a stiff but determined step now, refusing the wheelchair. Jonah noticed. "You're forcing yourself." "I cannot appear weak," Selvara replied. "Not now." They entered a chamber filled with glowing screens and floating data panels. A tall Vila officer stood at attention. "Matron," he said, "we have new intelligence." Selvara's eyes narrowed. "Speak." The officer looked briefly at Jonah, then at Selvara. "Kairos has contacted his allies," the officer said. "They will meet tonight at the Glass Wastes." Selvara's jaw tightened. "That is forbidden territory." "It is unmonitored," the officer replied. "No enforcement drones. No civilian traffic." Jonah crossed his arms. "Sounds like the perfect place to plan something horrible." Selvara's gaze sharpened. "Yes." Then she turned to Jonah. "And you are going to help me stop him?" Jonah stared. "Me?" Selvara nodded as if it was obvious. "You are human. You think differently. You act differently. And Kairos will not expect you." Jonah laughed once, short and bitter. "I'm a field researcher." Selvara stepped closer. "And yet you charged toward a cliff to save an alien woman you had never met." Jonah couldn't argue. Selvara lowered her voice. "If Kairos succeeds, Vila Prime will become a closed world. My treaties with Earth will collapse. Trade will die. The pure line will rise." Jonah said quietly, "And humans will be blamed." Selvara nodded. "Yes. You understand." Rook pressed against Jonah's leg, steady and warm. Jonah exhaled slowly. "Okay," Jonah said. "Tell me the plan." Selvara's eyes flashed with something dangerous and hopeful. "We will not use Vila tactics." Jonah raised an eyebrow. "What does that mean?" Selvara's lips curved slightly. "We will use yours." Night fell over Vila Prime like a curtain. In the fortress, Jonah prepared with a small team of Selvara's most loyal guards. They gave him armor that fit like a heavy jacket. They offered him a neural stunner. Jonah took it but didn't look confident holding it. He wasn't built for this. But humans rarely were, until they had to be. Selvara watched him quietly. "You are afraid." Jonah didn't deny it. "Yeah." Selvara nodded. "Good. Fear sharpens the mind, if you don't let it rule you." Jonah looked down at Rook. "He's not afraid." Selvara's gaze softened. "That is why your species bonds with them. Loyalty like that cannot be purchased. It cannot be faked." Jonah scratched behind Rook's ears. The dog's tail thumped once, then stopped. Rook sniffed the air, tense again. Jonah noticed. What is it now? A guard spoke into a comm device. Unidentified signal detected near the outer gate. Selvara's face hardened instantly. They found us. Jonah's pulse jumped. Already. The fortress lights dimmed. A warning tone began to pulse. Then the security officer shouted, "Incoming!" The mountain shook. A violent blast hit the outer wall. Stone cracked. Shields flared bright, then flickered. Jonah stumbled, catching himself on a console. Rook barked, furious. Selvara's guards moved into formation. Selvara didn't flinch. She simply looked at Jonah and said, "This is the difference between Vila and humans." Jonah swallowed. What difference? Selvara's eyes burned with cold truth. Vila nobles fight for pride. Another explosion hit. Humans fight, Selvara continued, voice rising over chaos, for each other. A third blast. This one broke through. Smoke poured into the halls. And through it, Jonah saw the silhouettes of armored attackers stepping inside. Their helmets bore a symbol, pure white, like a skull made of crystal. The pure line. Jonah tightened his grip on the stunner. Rook stepped forward, teeth bared. And Selvara whispered the words that made Jonah's blood run cold. "Kairos is not trying to kill me anymore." Jonah stared. Then what is he trying to do? Selvara's voice was quiet, but it cut like a knife. "He is trying to take the one thing I cannot replace." She looked at Jonah. "You." The first attacker stepped through the smoke with confidence. That was his mistake. Jonah Reed didn't think. He reacted. He grabbed the stunner, aimed low like instinct told him, and fired. Blue energy slammed into the alien's legs, locking his joints. The attacker crashed forward, armor clanging loudly as he hit the stone floor. Rook was already moving. The dog surged past Jonah, teeth flashing, hitting the second attacker from the side with brutal precision. He didn't go for the throat. He went for balance. The alien fell hard, weapon skidding away. The corridor erupted into chaos. Selvara's guards fired disciplined bursts, forcing the remaining attackers to take cover. Energy bolts scorched the walls, filling the air with the smell of burned metal. Jonah's heart hammered so hard he could hear it in his ears. "I am not trained for this," he shouted. Selvara moved beside him, calm in the storm. "Neither were my ancestors," she replied. "They learned." A blast hit the ceiling. Stone rained down. Rook barked sharply, then froze. Jonah followed the dog's gaze. 3 more attackers were dropping in from above, repulsor boots glowing as they descended like ghosts. Their armor was heavier. Their movements smoother. Elite. Selvara's voice tightened. Kairos sent his best. Jonah swallowed. Of course he did. The lead attacker raised a weapon that hummed with dangerous power. Jonah didn't fire. Instead, he grabbed a loose data tablet from the floor and hurled it at the attacker's helmet. It shattered on impact. The alien staggered back, confused. That second of confusion saved them. Selvara's guard slammed him with a stun blast. Rook leapt again, knocking another attacker sideways into a support pillar. The pillar cracked. The fortress shook. "This place is going to collapse." Jonah yelled. Selvara snapped orders. "Fall back to the lower tunnels." They ran. Not in formation. Not gracefully. They ran like humans do, fast, messy, desperate. The tunnels beneath the fortress were ancient, carved long before energy shields or plasma weapons existed. Stone walls closed in tight, forcing attackers to abandon heavy gear. Jonah gasped for air, legs burning. Rook ran ahead, nose low, choosing paths without hesitation. How does he know where to go? Jonah panted. Selvara answered without slowing. He doesn't. He feels it. Jonah laughed breathlessly. Figures. Behind them, boots thundered. Weapons fired blindly. A bolt struck close, shattering stone inches from Jonah's head. "Okay," Jonah muttered. "New rule. No more cliffs." No more alien politics. Just dogs and dirt. Selvara actually smiled. Just a little. They burst into a wide cavern lit by glowing mineral veins. At its center sat an old cargo elevator platform, rusted but intact. Selvara slammed her palm onto the control panel. Nothing happened. Jonah's stomach dropped. Please tell me that's not broken. Selvara stared at the dead panel. It is old. Rook growled. The attackers were close now. Shadows moved at the tunnel entrance. Jonah stepped forward, mind racing. Humans didn't win by being stronger. They won by being creative. Stand back, Jonah said. He yanked open the panel, exposing wires and power cells. Selvara blinked. You know how to fix this. No, Jonah said honestly. But I know how to make it angry. He crossed two glowing cables. The platform roared to life. The sudden surge blasted sparks everywhere. The elevator lurched upward violently. They jumped on as energy bolts flew past. The platform shot upward, scraping stone, throwing sparks like fireworks. An attacker leapt after them. Rook lunged. The dog hit the alien midair. Both vanished down the shaft. Jonah screamed. Rook! A second later, Rook reappeared, claws digging into the platform edge, eyes blazing. Jonah grabbed his harness and hauled him up. The elevator slammed to a stop at the upper level. They were out. For now. They didn't stop running until they reached Selvara's emergency command chamber, a hidden room sealed with biometric locks and shielded against scans. The door closed behind them with a heavy final thud. Silence followed. Jonah slid down the wall, breathing hard, shaking all over. Rook leaned against him, solid and alive. Jonah buried his face in the dog's fur. You scared the hell out of me. Rook licked his cheek once. Selvara stood still, eyes closed, as if listening to something only she could hear. They will regroup, she said. Kairos does not waste resources. Jonah wiped his face. So what's his endgame? Selvara opened her eyes. He wants leverage. Jonah frowned. Against you. Against humanity. The words hit harder than any explosion. Selvara activated the room's main display. A star map filled the air. Highlighted routes flashed red. Trade corridors, Jonah realized. Yes, Selvara said. Routes Earth relies on. Jonah's blood ran cold. He's planning to disrupt them. Worse, Selvara replied. He plans to blame humans for the chaos. A manufactured incident. A massacre. Jonah clenched his fists. That would start a war. Selvara nodded. And Kairos would rise as a savior of Vila purity. Jonah paced. So we expose him. Yes, Selvara agreed. But we cannot use Vila systems. They are compromised. Jonah stopped pacing. Then he smiled. Selvara noticed immediately. I recognize that expression. It's a human one, Jonah said. Means someone just had a very bad idea. Selvara tilted her head. Explain. Jonah looked at the star map, then at the fortress schematics. Kairos expects counterattacks. He expects soldiers. He expects politics. Jonah pointed at a maintenance access line. He will not expect a human scientist, a dog, and a data ghost. Selvara raised an eyebrow. A data ghost. Jonah nodded. Human tech. Old school. Offline. Ugly. Invisible to your networks. Selvara stared at him. Slowly, her posture changed. Hope crept in. You would infiltrate his operation directly. Jonah shrugged. Humans break rules. It's kind of our thing. Rook barked once, sharp and eager. Selvara looked at the dog, then back at Jonah. Very well, she said. We will hunt my son. Jonah met her gaze. No. Selvara frowned. No. Jonah's voice hardened. We don't hunt him. He tapped his chest. I do. Silence filled the chamber. Selvara studied him for a long moment. Then she bowed her head. A human will decide the fate of my world, she said softly. Jonah looked down at Rook. Guess we're doing this, buddy. Rook's tail wagged once. Far across the planet, aboard a hidden off-world vessel, Kyra's Veln watched stolen footage of the fortress attack. He smiled. Good, he whispered. The human survived. He turned to a towering figure beside him, something not Vila, not human. Prepare Phase 2, Kyra's ordered. I want him alive. The figure's eyes glowed red. As you wish. And the galaxy quietly leaned closer to the edge. The glass wastes lived up to their name. Miles of fractured crystal stretched across the surface of Vila Prime, reflecting starlight in sharp, blinding angles. Every step crunched like breaking bones. Sensors failed here. Signals scattered. Navigation systems lied. That was exactly why Kyra's Veln had chosen it. And exactly why Jonah Reed smiled when he saw it. This place is a nightmare, Jonah muttered as their stolen transport skimmed low over the terrain. Selvara sat behind him, calm but focused. For Vila technology, yes. Jonah glanced at the analog compass taped to his console. For humans? Just another bad day. Rook lay between them, alert, eyes scanning every reflection. His ears twitched constantly, tracking sounds Jonah couldn't hear. They landed several kilometers away from the enemy encampment. Jonah killed the engines. From here on, Jonah said quietly, we walk. Selvara hesitated. You are certain this will work? Jonah checked his pack, low-tech drones, signal scramblers, chemical smoke flares, old Earth explosives repurposed for shock, not destruction. No, he said honestly. But certainty is overrated. They moved through the crystal field like ghosts. The Pure Line encampment loomed ahead, a cluster of modular structures surrounded by sensor towers and armed patrols. Sleek. Clean. Confident. Too confident. Jonah crouched behind a crystal ridge and studied the patrol patterns. They rely on predictive algorithms, Selvara whispered. Jonah nodded. Which means they expect logical behavior. He looked at Rook. Ready to be illogical. Rook's tail stilled. Focused. Waiting. Jonah clipped a small device onto the dog's harness, a pulse emitter synced to human frequencies only. No alien tech, Jonah murmured. You're invisible to them. He pointed left. Go. Rook vanished into the crystal maze. Seconds later, alarms erupted on the far side of the camp. Patrols rushed toward the noise. Jonah didn't wait. He and Selvara slipped in from the opposite side, Jonah deploying smoke charges that confused thermal sensors but barely affected human vision. They reached the command structure undetected. Jonah cracked the panel manually, bypassing alien encryption with a physical override. Selvara watched in disbelief. They never considered that someone wouldn't ask permission from the system, Jonah finished. Inside, the room glowed with star maps and trade routes. Jonah froze. Selvara, he whispered. He's not planning disruption. She stepped beside him and gasped. Highlighted routes converged into a single point, Earth's outer relay station. He's staging a massacre, she breathed. One that looks like human retaliation. Jonah's jaw tightened. That would justify extermination. Before either could move, slow clapping echoed behind them. Kyra's Veln stepped out of the shadows, flanked by armored guards. And behind him stood the towering off-worlder Jonah had seen in the footage, taller than any Vila, skin like dark steel, eyes glowing red. Well done, human, Kyra said smoothly. You exceeded expectations. Selvara stepped forward. You would doom entire worlds for your pride. Kyra's laughed. Pride? No. Control. He looked at Jonah. Humans frighten the galaxy. Not because of strength, but because you adapt too fast. Jonah smirked. You invited me here just to say that. Kyra's raised a hand. The guards aimed. I invited you, Kyra said, to remove unpredictability. Rook burst through the side wall. He didn't bark. He didn't hesitate. He slammed into Kyra's, knocking him off balance as Jonah dove for cover. Gunfire erupted. Crystal shattered. Selvara grabbed a fallen weapon and fired with perfect precision, disabling guards with surgical calm. The offworlder moved fast, too fast. He grabbed Jonah by the throat and lifted him effortlessly. Human ingenuity ends here, the creature growled. Jonah's vision blurred. Then Rook hit the creature from behind, triggering the pulse emitter. The offworlder screamed. His armor flickered. Jonah realized the truth. It's biotech, Jonah gasped. Human frequencies scramble it. Selvara shouted, then finish it. Jonah slammed a charge onto the creature's chest and kicked off hard. The explosion wasn't lethal, but it was enough. The creature collapsed, systems fried. Kyra's scrambled backward, horror on his face. This wasn't supposed to happen. Jonah stood over him, breathing hard. You made one mistake, Jonah said quietly. Kyra's snarled. What? You thought humanity needed permission to matter. Jonah turned to Selvara. Send everything. She activated the broadcast. Across Vila Prime, and beyond, the truth spilled out. Footage. Plans. Confessions. Kyra's screamed as enforcement signals locked onto his position. The galaxy watched his downfall in real time. As Kyra's was dragged away, Selvara approached Jonah. You have saved my world, she said. Jonah shook his head. No. We just reminded it what humanity does best. Rook sat proudly between them. Far above, trade routes stabilized. Earth's signal burned bright. But Jonah knew one thing. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Silence followed the chaos. Not the empty kind, but the heavy silence that comes after something important has changed. The glass wastes burned softly under the rising sun, their fractured surfaces reflecting 1,000 shades of gold. Enforcement skimmers circled above the shattered encampment, collecting prisoners and sealing evidence. Kyra's Veln was gone, taken away in restraints strong enough to hold a collapsing star. Jonah Reed stood still, watching it all, Rook seated at his side. For the first time since leaving Earth, Jonah felt the weight of history pressing down on him. Selvara approached slowly. My son is finished, she said. His allies will scatter. The pure line has lost its symbol. Jonah nodded, exhausted. Symbols matter. Yes, Selvara agreed. Which is why yours now terrifies the galaxy. Jonah frowned. Mine. Selvara gestured toward the hovering media drones that had arrived uninvited, broadcasting across systems. They are calling this moment, she said carefully, the human interruption. Jonah exhaled a tired laugh. That sounds about right. Within hours, the evidence Jonah and Selvara had released spread beyond Vila Prime. Trade councils froze accounts tied to Kyra's network. Off-world mercenary groups quietly erased their involvement. Systems that had once flirted with isolation suddenly reopened talks with Earth. Human diplomats didn't threaten. They didn't posture. They simply presented facts. And the galaxy listened. Because a single human, armed with outdated tech and a dog, had dismantled a conspiracy built by empires. Days later, Jonah sat in Selvara's fortress garden, surrounded by alien flora that pulsed gently with bioluminescent light. Rook lay stretched beside him, finally relaxed. Selvara joined him, no guards this time. The council has made its decision, she said. Jonah looked up. Am I being deported? Selvara smiled faintly. You are being invited. She handed him a small data slate. Vila Prime will appoint a human liaison, she continued. An independent advisor. Someone not bound by our traditions. Jonah stared at the slate. You want me? Yes. Jonah shook his head. I'm not a politician. Selvara nodded. Neither was my late mate. He believed diplomacy was simply the courage to listen. Jonah thought of Earth. Of long nights in research labs. of quiet walks with Rook under unfamiliar stars. "What happens if I say no?" Jonah asked. Selvara answered honestly. "We continue. But slower. More cautiously." Jonah looked down at Rook. The dog looked back at him, eyes steady, trusting. Jonah sighed. "Figures." The announcement shook more than Vela Prime. Across known space, reactions poured in. Some species welcomed the change, curious about the unpredictable humans. Others watched nervously. Military analysts replayed footage of Rook's charge frame by frame, trying to understand how an unarmored animal disrupted elite forces. They failed. Because loyalty cannot be reverse-engineered. Jonah stood before the council days later, wearing a simple human jacket instead of formal alien robes. He spoke plainly. "I didn't come here to lead anyone," Jonah said. "I came here to study plants." A ripple of confusion passed through the chamber. "But when I saw something wrong," Jonah continued, "I didn't look away." He met Selvara's gaze. "That's what humans do. We don't always know the rules. But we know when something's broken." Silence followed. Then agreement. Later that night, Jonah stood on a balcony overlooking the glowing city. Selvara joined him. "You have changed how they see humans," she said. Jonah shook his head. "No. We've always been like this." Selvara watched the stars. "Then the galaxy has been blind." Rook barked softly, staring into the darkness. Jonah followed his gaze. Far beyond Vela Prime, new signals flickered. New questions. New fears. And new hope. Selvara spoke quietly. "The galaxy will test humanity now." Jonah smiled. "Good," he said. "We learn fast." Far away, in the cold silence between systems, an ancient network observed the data pouring in. Human problem-solving patterns. Human emotional bonds. Human adaptability. A conclusion formed. Humanity was no longer a variable. It was a force. Back on Vela Prime, Jonah knelt and scratched Rook's head. "Guess we're not just visitors anymore, huh?" Rook wagged his tail. The stars burned brighter that night. Not because they had changed, but because the galaxy finally noticed who had been standing there all along.